Well, David Zetland believes sustainable water management is best served by no-nonsense economic analysis. As we continue our conversation, I ask him about some of the key points in his book, The End of Abundance. Now, you've written about the water-energy nexus, and here in the heart of energy country, we use a lot of water to get a lot of energy. Is that a dilemma?
No, not to me. So I don't like the whole idea of a water-energy nexus. I call it the coffee-donut nexus. You know, why don't we have a coffee-donut nexus? Why isn't there some guy in charge of coffee and donuts? And the reason that we don't have a guy in charge of that is because there's a whole industry called donuts, and there's a whole industry called coffee, and they have price signals. And when you're running out of coffee, someone's going to show up with the coffee, or they're going to raise the price. If you're running out of donuts, it's the same kind of response. So the water-energy nexus is the idea that because we use water to make energy and we use energy to pump water, we need to manage them together. And I say that's not the way to do it. What we need to have is a water sector that is run on a financially sustainable basis, where the price of water reflects the scarcity of water, and an energy sector which has for many, many, many years run on a scarcity basis. When energy is scarce, it's expensive. Now in the US, the fracking revolution literally has dropped the price of natural gas by 3/4. So what you have is a price of energy that goes up and down based on supply and demand, and you could have a price of water that goes up and down based on supply and demand. So what I say is leave energy alone, and the energy sector can buy water as long as it's paying a correct price, a fair price if you want, that reflects the scarcity of the water. So instead of going towards more and more management of water and extending its hand into energy, I think that the water sector should be setting more appropriate prices. So urban water is a whole different story, your tap water. So the scarcity should be higher when your city is in a shortage. But when you're talking about agricultural water and bulk water that these fracking guys are buying, they don't pay $10 for a permit and take unlimited water out of the river. They should be paying something close to a market price that reflects that scarcity. And it might be a price that a bunch of farmers agree that they want to sell it to the energy company. That's fine, as long as everybody realizes that they're paying a fair price to take that quantity of water, and then they'll go use it for energy. And if the price rises high enough, as you know, the energy companies will find ways to use less water. They'll recycle their water and use it again. They'll get water from a lower quality, more salty water. And they will only do that when the price signal is there. If they're given water for free, they'll use it.
And water does not respect state boundaries.
So there's two ways to look at it. Number one is that it has to cross the state boundaries, and some people try and stop it, and they just use it there. But this happens with the U.S. and Mexico on the Colorado River. But the other one is that people say, I don't want someone on the other side of the boundary to buy or use this water from someone on this side of the boundary. And that makes sense only when some group of people in the state don't want the other group of people in the state to benefit from selling the water. So if I have water to sell and you want to buy it, but someone over there wants to pay more, then I should be able to sell it to the guy who wants to pay more. And you make a law saying I can't, well, now I'm a little bit upset, right? But that's what happens with these state controversies.
What in the instances when it's in-ground water and it's flowing down and you take water, pipe it out, and sell it to whomever, and then the person down the aquifer doesn't have the water to use?
That is a big problem. And there's lots of examples of upstream people taking water and hurting the downstream people. There's people that take water out of the aquifer and hurt the other members of the aquifer. Those examples tend to illustrate a need to either respect the property rights or to reform the property rights. So on a river, you have riparian rights, which say you can use water if you do not impair your neighbors. So taking the water out of the river is actually illegal. In an aquifer, if you are sharing it and you have a right to take the water out of the aquifer, if someone's taking your water, then you have a right to get them to stop it. That's awfully hard to prove sometimes, but there's different ways to do it, and it stands on property rights.
Here's one I think is interesting. Take nothing, we die when it comes to water. Take everything, and we die as well.
Right. This is referring to the water and the environment. So we must take water out of the environment. We must deplete a river to an extent to grow food or even to take a shower. So in that sense, we have to take it out or we die. But if we take it all out, if we deplete our environment and and literally it's just we're surrounded by concrete, then we'll also die, because we receive not just the beauty of nature, but all kinds of what they call ecosystem services. We get clean air. We get the ecosystem cleans water. It protects us from floods. It buffers the winter rains so they come out in the summer. So in that sense, the environment is our partner in managing water, and we want to put as much emphasis on that as we can. There was not a lot of emphasis in the last 50 years, the age of concrete in a sense. So what we ended up doing is we ended up building, for example, reservoirs above ground with concrete that would store water, but we would lose a lot to evaporation. And we did not use an underground aquifer that can store water without evaporation. And so in some ways, using nature for water management is a cost-effective way of getting bigger benefits from water.
Fascinating conversation. David Zetland, an economist and author of The End of Abundance: Economic Solutions to Water Scarcity.